Hey, what's up, family? Are you someone that wants more out of life, but you seem to just be stuck in an endless cycle of questions? You're asking yourself stuff like, why do I feel unmotivated? Or what am I really passionate about in life? Or do I even have like a clear vision of what I want for my future? Y'all, I feel you. I promise you I do. And for a long time, I was in the same place. And in some ways, I still am, honestly. I'm constantly turning to God, trying to find my way out of this place of uncertainty. And also this feeling of being caged. It's kind of like being, it's like I got this beast inside of me that's begging to show up in its full beauty and its fullness, and it's just like life just keep on pushing back. And today I want to talk about how to get unstuck. And if I'm being honest, outside of the Bible, there's only one book that has truly helped me on my journey. And actually in my last video I started to talk about it a little bit, Mel Robbins, but today I'm going to dive just a little bit deeper into some of her work. And the book that I read from her is called How to Take Back Control of Your Life. And y'all, I'm talking about this thing is the real deal. It's kind of like being able to get insight into several different therapy sessions all at once, multiple different therapy sessions, and you can understand and see real time that we're not the only ones going through this. There's so many people who are doing the same things or experiencing the same feeling, so you're not alone. And not only that, there are so many people who are searching for meaning in life. There are so many people who are looking for love and maybe looking for love in all the wrong places. There are so many people who want to maybe start a business. There are so many people who just want to do something, but life just not seem to be life, right? And I'm going to try my best to make this one a shorter video, but at the same time, I want to make sure that this is thorough, because this is like something that really impacts a lot of people, and I want to make sure that somebody can get a true blessing, okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get regal. Let's start with understanding fear and control. Here's another question that we need to ask ourselves. We done asked ourselves a million, so let's just ask one more. What are we so afraid of? What are we afraid of? Now, if you're like me, especially if you're a man, your response is typically like, oh, I ain't afraid of nothing, everything good, it's something else. But I beg to differ. You see, the reason that we feel like we're stuck in a rut is because we are afraid. And not only that, we don't even understand the fear. And not only that, we don't like the feeling of vulnerability. But I'm here to tell you, and I'm here to help. The connection between fear and control are unmistakable. I honestly believe that the reason Mel called her book How to Take Back Control of Your Life is because control is the one thing that we truly want in every experience in our lives. And in a lot of ways, we try to find it in these really unhealthy ways and in these unhelpful ways. Or we masquerade like we got everything together, but internally we're withering away. And one of the things that she talked about in the book was how she used to look for control in her life and in herself. She said that she would always address fears that she had about life by choosing to run. Like she would just go, right? Other people choose to fight. Whether you choose to fight or whether you choose to run, we are all looking for some form of control. But that's the hard part about it. Whenever you're running away from something, that thing is winning. And another great point that I like about her thoughts here in the book is that she addresses the size of our fear. She talks about the size of it, right? Now, more importantly, she talks about how fear is making us think too big. What she means by this is like when we go and we're thinking about certain things, about our certain goals, we get stuck in life because we're trying to make leaps and bounds into the next transition in our life. I mean, we start overthinking, and we become less likely to pursue our goals because we've made them too big. We made a monument out of them in the first place. And I can't tell you how many times I was trying to make everything perfect before I got started. I mean, I would think to myself, why would I put out something that's unoriginal? Or why would I put out something that I think is trash, or that I think other people would think is trash? I need to show everybody that I'm serious. I need to show everybody that I'm great. I need to show everybody how beautiful my ideas are, right? But I would get stuck in this because I didn't have the resources to do those things at the time. Not only that, I would be so focused on my delusions of grandeur that I couldn't see that mastery does not come from learning to do an easy thing perfectly. It comes from the ability to overcome the setbacks in the process. It comes from having the bravery to suck at something just at the beginning, just to suck at the beginning. And then later have the mastery that comes through patience, that comes through persistence, and that comes through persevering through what we have to go through. And not to mention almost every single noteworthy invention or groundbreaking contribution to humanity started out with some kind of tragic loss or failure. See, think about this. Did we just get an airplane on the first try, or did the Wright brothers fail all while having Samuel Langley trying to beat them to the punch, and he had better resources. But see, the Wright brothers ended up with more credibility because they continued to process, they continued to grow. But for some reason, we believe that we need to already have the PhD, we need to already be a multimillionaire, we need to already have our brand established, we need to already have a 30-year marriage, right? We take on all of these really audacious goals, and we end up crumbling under the pressure that we put on our own psyche. To that point, as I was reading this, I thought about the Will Smith book too. Right at the beginning, he was talking about how his dad made him and his siblings build a wall. And they would talk about like, oh man, Dad, this is too hard. Or, oh man, Dad, this is boring. Or, oh man, Dad, you're making us build a wall. And he was like, don't be worrying about no wall. He scolded him. He was like, don't worry about no wall. Worry about one brick and laying that brick perfectly. Make that brick the best brick that you possibly can, and then repeat the process. And the beautiful part is that inevitably, after developing the project brick by brick by brick by brick, the wall will be there. Now, that's some powerful stuff when you really think about it. But let's talk about our behavior. You know, it was entertaining to hear her talk about some of the behaviors that people had in the book, because I've done a lot of these things myself, and if I'm being honest, some of them are kind of what I talked about on these videos. So hey, it is what it is. Just pray for me. But at the same time though, y'all, she talked about how a lot of us are winning outside, but internally we're losing those, you know, that inside game, right? And one example she gave in the book was this young lady. She had experienced divorce. She had just gone through divorce and she had kids, and she said that she had a new boyfriend, and her new boyfriend really loved her and he was a great guy. But the big problem was that she sought control by accumulating stuff, right? She would hoard a lot of things. And that was her unconscious behavior cycle. And as she collected more and more stuff, she would continue to push people further and further away from her. But the kicker is this: she was a full-time teacher, and as a full-time teacher, her classroom and her lesson plans were in pristine and clean and tidy conditions, right? Moreover, the only place in her house that other people could see was the one thing that was clean. So her self-admitted messiness was a picture of how she felt inside, right? And inside she was a mess, but externally she wanted to tell the world that she had it all together. That's like holding your breath, honestly, and it's unhealthy. And not only that, it's dangerous. Another example is how some people overspend. They'll just go and shop as a way to get a quick hit of control, whether they're hoarding, whether they're getting into toxic relationships, whether they're getting into unnecessary arguments. All of this is just a veneer of them trying to have control in their lives. And they do that instead of facing the darker and more painful battles within themselves, right? And one of the best tools that we can use to combat this, and I talk about it all the time, is consciousness and awareness, but this time having consciousness awareness about the habit loop. You see, without going too deep into habits, the habit loop is the cycle of our behaviors as we encounter different stimuli within our life, right? So the cycle starts with the cue. The cue is the trigger that initiates the process, and it's instantaneous. Like I said, this is unconscious behavior, right? So we're talking about maybe it's a smell or maybe it's a sound. It could literally be anything we've experienced in our past, and when dealing with being in this rut, most of these cues are deeply woven into the traumas of our past. The next part of the cycle is this craving. The craving is the feeling, or it's this itch that we need to scratch, right? So after experiencing the cue, like I said, we're gonna stick with this can idea. Once you hear that sound, once you hear the sound of the can opening, it may trigger an emotional of our past and how our loved one used to drink excessively, and how that damaged our family, how that damaged our childhood and our confidence. So when we hear that sound, we tend to have a craving to react. Now the response is essentially the action that we take after having the craving. So let's say that you were a kid and you saw your loved one drinking all the time. You really couldn't do anything about it because, I mean, hey, you just a kid. What you gonna do, right? So when you're a child and you had to experience this, you just shied away from it, or maybe you turned a blind eye to it, or at least you tried to. So now that you're a full-fledged adult, your response to this craving is to avoid it. Even though it's painful for you, even though it triggers this, you avoid it by scrolling on social media, or you're turning your head away, and then the reward is the last step in the habit loop. Only in this case, it's not much of a reward, it's really like a result, right? And once we're stuck in this habit loop, if we don't see it, if we don't understand it, if we aren't knowledgeable about it, we will stay in this cycle again and again and again, and we'll always wonder why things aren't clicking and why we always feel a certain way. So this is a good time to talk about how to break those negative patterns. See, Mel introduces this three-step system, right? She talks about how we need to find the fear, identify our response to the fear, and then change the pattern, right? That's the best part. One key aspect she emphasizes is the significance of paying attention to our physiology, right? This is going to be an indicator of our reactions to these negative experiences and these negative emotions. Our bodies often manifest physical responses to stress or to fear or to anxiety, and it could be like sweaty palms, racing pulse, or an increase like you start to sweat, maybe you got to poop. And she underscores this importance of tuning into to physiology cues, as they can serve as an early indicator to our emotional state. By being mindful about our bodies, we can gain a deeper understanding about our reactions to certain triggers and how we can proactively address these negative patterns. And see, Mel encourages us to leverage this mind-body connection for personal growth. And in her own words, one of the quotes was, "Our minds are the most powerful tool we have for the navigation of our lives." That can't be more true. So recognizing and interpreting our physiology responses is a powerful tool to not only for your awareness, but it helps you pave the way for your intentional change and transformation of your negative pattern. But with that said, the next big takeaway that I had was that we feel like we're stuck in life because we have our consciousness bound by time. Now, I talked about some in my last video, so I'm not gonna beat a dead horse, but I just want to reiterate that time-bound consciousness is not a good thing, like not at all. And we feel like we're stuck because we're going so fast trying to get unstuck. And ironically, that's the problem. You see what I'm saying? It's like quicksand. But I came to tell you that you have so much time. I know it doesn't feel like it because we're always racing through every single day. We're always trying to catch this cheese. That's another good book for you, Who Stole My Cheese? But we're always trying to make a plan, and then when that plan fails, we feel like we're terrible people. We feel like it's something wrong with us. In fact, honestly, that's a good point. There's nothing wrong with you. That's one of the questions that Mel brings up in the book. She says, so many people consistently ask themselves, man, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? The better question that you need to be asking yourself is, what happened to me? You see, this allows us to face the fear and deep dive into the root of our negative thought pattern. This reframing is so powerful because there isn't a single thing wrong with us. Not a single thing wrong with us. We are made in God's image. And should you be a follower of Christ, we are destined for greatness. So asking what happened to us will allow us to reverse engineer this toxic cycle and reconnect with who we are. And as I mentioned before, that's why relationships are so important. If y'all remember that video, etymologically, a relationship means to bring someone back or to carry someone back. This is what it's all about. This is why we can't do this thing alone. So if you're trying to get unstuck by yourself, you're making it more difficult than it has to be. But again, we have so much time, guys. I mean, if you're 33 and you see a 19-year-old making 6 figures a month, that can be a little kick in the gut to see, right? And if you're in your 50s and you see the same thing, I mean, I bet words can't even explain what that feels like. But at the same time, you got to have proper perspective. Because the truth of the matter is that there is a $213 billion company that was started by a man in his 50s. Actually, he was 52, and he had experienced an array, a myriad of failures and humiliation. Look at Reed Hastings. Reed Hastings didn't start Netflix until he was like 37. And then Martha Stewart didn't start her brand until she was 52. Walmart, look at Sam Walton. He didn't start till he was like 44, and on and on and on and on. You see, we think that we don't have so much time. We don't have any time because of like preconceived notions from society. Don't trust society. I mean, society are the peoples who literally charge us money for groceries and water, and this is stuff that we can go in our backyard if we just break away from the convenience that we've come to know and love, right? And then we working according to the way that God intended. You got time. So if you've been working on plan A and it hasn't worked for you just yet, and it hasn't worked all this time, stop worrying about plan A. Plan A rarely ever ends the way we originally planned it, right? So sometimes what works for us is usually going to be like plan W, but W for the win. How about that? And the best thing that we need to do when we're learning to manage our time better is to really get crystal clear on what we truly want out of life. I mean, what are our priorities? You need to think about that. What do you value? Do you really want six-pack abs, or is that just a societally influenced wish? I mean, this is your life and you have to take control of it. If you don't want six-pack abs, who cares what your body looks like? You know what I'm saying? Like, now I highly recommend being healthy and doing all the right things. That way you can live here as long as you can and operate at your highest capacity. But if you're listening to some hard charging dude on the internet telling you to wake up at 4 a.m. and then drink 1 million kale smoothies and then do 10 million burpees and say bye to sugar, if that's what you want out of life, go do your thing, Water. But at the same time, if that's not who you are, don't fall into that trap. Yeah, I call it a trap. I mean, you want to know the difference between a fat man and a skinny man? The difference is that one of them is going to die healthier. How about that? And I know the critics gonna say, oh, but it's, the healthier one's gonna live longer. But first off, that's not entirely true based off the book of Ecclesiastes. You see what I'm saying? But secondly, the quality of our years is far greater than the quantity of our years. I mean, you have people who've lived an entire lifetime but are completely miserable. But then you have people who've lived a relatively shorter lifetime, but they've lived, like Nicki Minaj said in that one song, but to live doesn't mean you're alive. So all that to say this, just know who you are. Know who God has called you to be and walk in royalty. So the last point that I have for you guys is about personal development and mindset. The first thing that I'm going to tell you is that this is a prescription. This is a prescription. Go take a shower. Go take a shower. You see, this is a good strategy because it produces white noise. Now, I don't know how many of y'all have kids, but if you know, you know. When you start out with your newborn baby, what's going to help soothe them is white noise, right? The sounds of the TV, the vacuums, whatever, white noise. You see, that noise registers with our ear and our brain at a certain frequency and on a different level. And that's what a shower does for adults. I mean, the pitter patter and the cacophony of the water, it soothes us. And not only that, it allows our brains to think better so we can be more creative. Have you ever noticed that you get your best ideas when you're in a state of rest and you're relaxed? That's the goal. That's the goal here. Actually, that's the goal every time. When you relax, your brain isn't searching for ways to protect itself. It's just operating and existing in its natural creative nature. And see, we are made in the image of God. And it's God's nature to create. Therefore, it is our duty to create in a state of flow. This will help us discover ourselves, and discovering ourselves is the first discipline of credibility. This will help us develop the content of our character, and the content of our character is the source of our competence, it's the source of our confidence, it's the source of our credo. And maybe your thing isn't a shower. Maybe the way you relax is completely different, but the shower works for me. I mean, if I'm being honest, y'all, sometimes I get in the shower and I'll just start preaching whatever's on my heart. I come up with the best messages. I mean, I just be flowing, right? And I'll be like, oh my goodness, this is good. But then I get mad too, because it's like, man, I should have recorded this. This could have blessed somebody. I be going all the way in. But that's the power of it. That's the beauty of the shower. That's the beauty of relaxation. The law of least effort, right? That was the purpose. You see, I talked to my son last night about purpose when we went to go eat. I told him, like, son, what is purpose? He was like, I don't know, Daddy. I was like, you got a pencil? He was like, yeah. And I was like, well, son, what does a pencil do? He was like, oh, it write? I was like, yeah, it write and convey a message, right? So it's designed to do what it does. So that's what purpose is. It's literally doing what God has created us to do at the highest level possible. So when we're in a state of flow, it'll behoove us to capture it and share it with the world. But sometimes just operating in purpose is just doing just that. It's just being who we are. So with that said, I thank you guys for watching. If this has blessed you in any way, I ask that you share it to 11 people. 11 people, please. With whoever you think needs to hear this, just share it with them. Remember that God loves you. Be sure to like, follow, comment, and subscribe. Remember, it's Romans 8, chapter 28. That says all work works for the good of those who love him. So if you love Jesus, no matter if you feel stuck or if you feel like you're in a state of flow, whatever you're facing in life is either working on you or it's working for you. And remember, you're not stuck. You're in flux. Be blessed. Say loud.